This is a video of my Brachypelma Smithi Scarlett. She is approximately 5 inches. I don't know for sure, but when I first got her she was roughly 4, and the molt after that was about 4.5, so it just stands to reason she'd be 5. Here are the molts here. As you can see, there's quite a big difference between them in terms of size, and the second molt is actually very well intact. In fact, it almost looks like another spider. As you can see, Scarlett has been busy in her little enclosure. She's webbed everywhere, although it's not completely apparent. You might be able to see a little web strand just above her right there. She's also dug out her hide to make a nice little burrow for herself, and she's piled up the entrance just to make it a little bit more narrow. Of course, as always, she's dumped the substrate in her water, which means I have to clear it out. Thank you very much, Scarlett. Really love doing that. But to be honest, it's no bother at all. The only thing I am worried about is disturbing her web, because it just looks so nice. And when I first got her, she was very skittish. I was able to handle her, but it got to a point where she was kick hairs if I tried to pick her up, so I left her alone. But after the first molt, she stopped kicking entirely, and it got to a point that I actually couldn't tell that her second molt was up and coming. There was just absolutely no bald patch whatsoever. A few weeks before she actually molted, there was like a little tiny patch, but because it was still covered in hair mostly, you couldn't tell whether she was in pre-molt or not. I asked around and nobody knew for sure. So I thought, oh, I'll just give it a while, see how she feels, and sure enough, she made a web bed and molted out. After her first molt, I noticed something really peculiar about her. I'm not sure if it has happened to anyone else's bee smithies, but mine tends to stridulate. It's not so much as like what you get with no BT, nothing like that. It's just more like a small stridulating noise when she moves. I'm inclined to believe that it's involuntary, but she doesn't always do it. But she does do it when she gets spooked, so it might have something to do with how she moves and how fast she moves. She kind of makes the noise when she catches her food. It's kind of hard to tell with all the rustling around. And another thing I've noticed about her spinnerets is that they're slightly emotive. And if you have a look, right now they're kind of loose, which means that she's calm. If they're up against her abdomen, then that means that she's a bit nervous. Like whenever I pick up her enclosure to do maintenance, or if I fill up her water dish. If they're spread out, then that means that she's either spooked or excited. I say that because her spinnerets do actually spread out when she's chasing a cricket. All in all, just like every other usual bee smithy, she's actually very calm and docile. She's stopped being a hair kicker, which I really do appreciate, because it really got to me when she started kicking hairs. Now, I got her as a 4-inch adult, as I said before, from a website called the Spider Shop, and they sold it to me for £30 as a sexed female. And when I went to buy Lamia, the pet shop had a sling for £65. And I thought, what? Yeah, I gotta be having a laugh. They're not that expensive. I expect to pay $65 for a full-grown adult, not a sling. I know prices are different over in America, but that's because bee smithies are actually more rare in America than they are over here. By contrast, there's actually a huge amount of bee smithies over in Europe. So £65 for a sling, that's, well, I hate to say it, but it's a rip-off. After her second molt, she had some trouble with her legs down her right side. It was the second and third leg. And it got to a point that I was very concerned. She was spending all of her time inside her hide, and to my knowledge just wasn't drinking. I thought that maybe she was struggling to get over her water dish, so I gave her a smaller one and left it at the mouth of her hide. But she was actually drinking, I just never saw it. There was no sign of dehydration on her abdomen, and she still caught her prey very effectively. It was just that when she was walking around, she looked like she was struggling with those two legs. I tried to show it off on a video, but you just couldn't see it unless you knew what to look for. But now she's actually back to her old self. She's climbing the tank again, and, well, as I said earlier, she's dug out her burrow. That's something she hasn't done for quite a long time. And just to show how calm this girl is, I'll just go and test her. See? Like Lamia, she is a little angel. And because I've disturbed her, you can see her spinnerets have actually gone back against her abdomen, which is a usual response really whenever you touch them. Normally I won't handle Scarlett anymore. After her second molt, she just became too much of a handful, and I'm not going to risk her safety. Every now and then though, when I take the lid off and she does climb out from the top, I do put my hand in front of her, handle her for a few minutes and then put her back. But because it's so awkward, I usually end up having to put her back on top of her hide. I say awkward because every time I try and put her down, she turns around and walks up my arm. Yeah, she's quite a character. And a good eater as well. Absolutely fantastic. She's eaten everything I've offered her. And I've offered her crickets, grasshoppers and superworms. I haven't tried roaches yet, although it's something that I might consider at a later time if I, say, get an LP. But to be honest, even that's a long way down the road. Originally I bought Scarlett to eat the food that Lamia wouldn't eat. But I actually did want to have a bee smithy as my first tarantula. But the sling that I mentioned before was £65 and there's no way I was going to pay that much for a sling. Not by a long shot. And I was already pretty much set on having a red-formed G. rosea. So I decided to wait and get a bee smithy at a later date. And when I saw this girl for £30, I thought that was a bargain. For the price of her, plus her enclosure, substrate, water dish and so on, with everything combined, she was still cheaper than that sling. Bear in mind that delivery was £10 alone. But not only did she eat all the food that Lamia would refuse, she actually showed herself to be a very interesting spider. Unlike Lamia, she's not a pet rock. She does have a tendency to wander around, although there are times when she actually does just sit there for hours on end doing nothing. But that's her prerogative. There's no rule to say that she has to walk around all the time. And to be honest, if she did, I'd be a bit worried. Bee Smithies have been more of an interest to me than Gyrozeas, especially with the whole fasting issue. And although I don't regret buying Lamia, there are times I wish I had Scarlett first. Because at least then I wouldn't have panicked so much when Lamia refused food. Scarlett is an adorable spider. I actually named her after John 3800's specimen. Her name was also inspired by the actress Scarlett Johansson. Why not? And you probably noticed that Scarlett has been jumping around quite a bit because of the editing. Just goes to show that Bee Smithies are not pet rocks. They can be pet rocks at times, but more often than not, this is what you're going to see. And she's actually webbing. That's nice. She's already tried to come out of her tank 2 or 3 times, but always turned around at the last second. And I think she might be trying to come out again. No. Unless she's going to walk onto a hide and then try to get out. As you can tell from the webbing, she's very fond of that spot. I've seen her sat on there many times. What I've used, if you don't already recognise it, is what's known as play sticks. These are usually given to things like hamsters, and they chew on these to sharpen their teeth. But they also make good hides for tarantulas. What I will say is that these things are only recommended for dry substrate. Damp or wet substrate is not a good idea, because when I first got these, her substrate was still drying out and it developed mould very quickly. So as a result, I had to take it out and cut off all the affected areas. Considering there's like a huge metal wire going through them, it's not an easy thing to do. But I got all the mould off, and now that the substrate is dry, she's perfectly fine with it. When she was smaller, I did use a cardboard tube, and she was fine with that. She didn't use it much. I think it's just too little room for her. Ideally, I would like something similar to what Lamia's got, but the only one that Pets at Home do is too big. And the journey to the pet shop where I got Lamia is just a little too far for me. It's like 40 odd miles. Oh, she might be coming out. You coming out, sweetie? I do hope not, because you're too much of a handful. No? Oh, that's a load off. Ordinarily I would like to handle her, but since I'm holding my phone, it's going to be a bit tricky. I will be trying to make a feeding video soon. However, if Lamia is not hungry, then there's no point. Because otherwise it'll just be a video of Scarlett. And there's only like 5 or 6 videos of Scarlett eating already, so I just want something with a little more variety. Maybe I should get another tarantula. It's a nice thought, but I've got nowhere to put it right now. But I suppose once I find the room, I can get another tarantula. I don't see why not. As long as they don't get an aggressive species, there's no problem. Oh, I love this girl to bits. I think the only thing I would change about Scarlett is that when she's handled, she tends to get more nervous as time goes by. And that's reflected in the fact that when you hold her, she starts to walk faster and faster and faster. If I just stick her on my shoulder, she'll be fine. But when she goes too far down my back, I have to try and coax her to go back up to my shoulder. And notice the best way to do that is to put my hand in front of her and wiggle my fingers. And she just walks back up to my shoulder. Although if I'm too quick about it, it will spook her and she will dart up my shoulder. And, well, that's just not good. Another thing I don't like about her is the fact she's got a strange fascination with my hair. When she does sit on my shoulder, more often than not, she'll actually try to climb onto my scalp. I have no idea why. All I know is that whenever she does it, I just pray she doesn't go to the toilet. Because that would be nasty. I better cut this video off now before Scarlett gets too upset. She doesn't like the light. I can't say I'm fond of it either. Well, I'd like to say thank you to Nick Johns for encouraging me to make these videos, and my friends on Facebook who also gave me some kind words of encouragement. Without them, I would not be making these videos. It would just be a case of having the odd feeding video here and there with no audio. Hopefully, if she's hungry, there should be another feeding video either Friday or Saturday. But then again, Lamia's appetite is unpredictable. She can be ravenous one minute and then fasting the next. I do apologise that this video is not as in-depth as Lamia's video, but I do hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. Thank you for watching.